Hello everyone, I just came from my chickens, picked up eggs. Today I want to talk to you about Nigerian goats. Let's go get them. Welcome to Fusion Harvest Homestead. I have a question for you. Got goats? Today we're going to talk to you about, I'm going to talk to you about Nigerian dwarf goats. This here is Miss Maple. Hi, Maple. She's the dominant one from her and Merle. Now, how do I know she's dominant? Well, because when I pick her up, Merle usually comes right along. But when I pick Merle up, Maple pretty much does whatever she wants to do for the entire time. Anyways, so when you decide, hey, I want a goat, the first thing you should do if you do not have a herd is to buy 2 goats. Now, baby female goats are called doelings. These here are doelings. When they grow up, they're going to be called does. And for male goats, bucklings are baby male goats and bucks are adult male goats. So when you do decide to go get your goat, I suggest that if you don't have a trailer or something to put your goats in, I suggest that you get a medium-sized dog crate or something like that and put puppy pads underneath it, and your goats will be perfectly happy like that. I do not suggest that if you do have a truck for the goats to be in a crate in the back of a truck just because they are more likely to get sick. Maple here, she's around maybe 9 or 10 weeks old. When you decide that you want to breed your Nigerian dwarf goats, and in case you didn't know, Nigerian dwarf goats are dairy goats, and they came to the United States from West Africa in the early 20th century. What you doing? So when you decide you want to breed your does, some people say, oh, it has to be at least 2 years before you breed them. Some might say, oh, it has to be at least 1.5 years or a year. Some say 8 or 9 months. Well, that really depends on your doe. It depends on how much they weigh. The minimum weight really for a Nigerian doe would be around 40 pounds. So it's always best to also know the size of the buck. Why? Because if the buck is big, then they're gonna have bigger kids. So it really depends on the size of the buck and the weight of your doe before you decide that it's time to breed. Now, Nigerian dwarf goats tend to be very friendly. However, they don't like to be disturbed very much when they're eating. But a lot of times when you first get your Nigerian dwarf goat, they'll be a little skittish, meaning a little bit scared of you, of their surroundings. They're not used to where they are, their environment. So I always suggest spend maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or depends on you, really, how much you want to spend with your goats. But I suggest you spend some time holding them and making sure they understand that you care for them and they're your goats, right? That way they'll start trusting you a little more. These Maple and Merle here started trusting me after having holding them quite a bit. And when they were done grazing, they would come to the porch and go, meh! And then they will wait for me to come out, and they'll want to be held and pet and everything else. So when we first got these Nigerian dwarf goats, we got them from a herd of like maybe 10 to 15 goats or so. So they were used to being surrounded by goats. So when I brought them here, it was just Maple and Merle. And they were a little lonely and they were like, where is everybody, right? So that week was honestly going to be very chilly, and I didn't want to leave the goats by themselves in the barn being all new to the environment and everything. So me and Simon decided to leave them in the backyard, and at night use the same crate, change the puppy pads, use the same crate, and bring them in during the night. And they got used to that routine actually. When I would open the basement, they knew, oh, it's bedtime, and they would come straight in. Today is going to be their first night here at the barn. Very first night. And so far, they're enjoying grazing around a little bit. They're away from the dogs, which that goes to my other tip. If you do have golden retrievers or a dog that's not necessarily guard dogs, I do suggest not to present your goat with the dog immediately, because it'll just frighten your goat a whole lot more. My puppies, they're very, very, very friendly, but when they've never seen goats before. So when I tried presenting them, it didn't go very well. So the goat will run, and Lassie and Buddy are like, oh, it's playtime. He wants to play with me. And the goat's scared to death. So I really do not suggest you doing that. I learned from that experience. Another thing, does a lot of times even come with horns, right? There is a term that's called polled. So if you're buying a doeling that's polled, that means they pretty much took out the horns. But even if they did take out the horns, they can still grow back. It just really depends on your doe. Now, there's two types of does or bugs that you can buy, and that's either registered or unregistered. If you want to show your doe, then you should buy a registered doe. Some people say that registered does have better milk. That really depends, I guess, on the person and on the goat. Also, if you do buy a registered goat, please make sure that the goat is tattooed. The breeder has a specific sign to tattoo the goat. If your goat is not tattooed, then the certificate that they give you to be able to register your goat can become void. So I highly suggest that you do that. When you get your food, you might be wondering, well, what do goats eat? Goats are very low maintenance in compared to cows and things like that. They'll need, obviously for the winter time, they'll need hay. If you have a lot of pasture during the summer, then that's great. If not, then hay. And I also suggest that you can buy alfalfa pellets or even the goat pellets. I buy the kind that says it's medicated. It's medicated, and they seem to love those. They mostly eat the pellets at night. That's what I would leave in the crate at night, and they would love those little pellets. And during the day, they would just graze off the grass here. Well, in the backyard, really. I don't know if I said this during my video, but if I didn't, Nigerian dwarf goats are dairy goats, and they give around 2 quarts per day, but it really depends on your goat. Some can give up to 3, some a little less. It just really depends on how much your goat is gonna get. Now, before I leave, I wanted to tell you that this is going to be part 1. There's gonna be a part 2 when the goats grow up a little bit, and I could explain more about breeding and about milking and having kids, them having kids and things like this. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for watching.